You're listening to a podcast by the Center for Action and Contemplation. To learn more, visit cac.org.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jacqui Lewis, and this is Love Period, a podcast about how to love ourselves, our posse, and the world fiercely, on the way to making the world better. My guest today is Genesis Briggs, a third-generation civil rights activist, raised by a nurse and an activist who converted to Islam when she was a child, who raised her in that faith, and she who raised herself in hip-hop. She is a student of the world, a love warrior, and a peacemaker. Genesis, thank you so much for coming today. How are you doing?
Yep. I'm doing lovely today. I woke up with a headache. I don't have it anymore, though. It's just good to see you. Glad to be here.
How did you chase your headache away? What did you do?
I took a big old ibuprofen, one of the fat ones. Drink some water. You know, Mississippi, if it sneaks up, the dehydration sneaks up on you if you're not careful.
Where do you live in Mississippi?
Biloxi.
Mm-hmm. Do people know? Talk about Mississippi.
Mississippi?
You and I both have Mississippi roots. Can you tell us about yours?
Sure. So my father's from Mississippi, Roxy, Mississippi, which is really close to Natchez. Most people would know that a little better. Just growing up here was a beautiful experience. Mississippi is a very complicated and complex place historically. A lot of generational trauma, a lot of unsolved pain, a lot of injustice, but it's also a very beautiful place. The people here are some of the most hospitable, gracious, calm people that I've ever met. And yeah, it's home. It's home.
Calm like the river in some ways, right? I feel like when I'm in Mississippi, I feel like smell of magnolias, dark of dirt, green, verdant of grass, and like the river. I don't know, right? It's
absolutely beautiful.
Gorgeous.
I say Mississippi sunset is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen.
And you talk about also the unsolved trauma. You have your own story of unsolved trauma. Your grandfather.
Sure. Yes, my grandfather. His name is Reverend Clyde Briggs, and he passed away when he was 42 years old. My father was 7, but he was a pretty extraordinary man. He was a war vet, a preacher, and an educator. He was an activist as well, so motivating, inspiring, educating Black folks in Franklin County to vote. Him and his boys and his friends would make transportation convoys to and from voting polls to protect Black citizens from the Klan, aka the police, from being harmed while they were trying to exercise their right to vote. And because of that, he received a lot of backlash and threats. KKK shooting into my father's childhood home with children inside and my pregnant grandmother, him being chased down the road, them having to be armed, them having to help arm other citizens and their friends to make sure that they weren't killed by the Klan. But yeah, so when he was 42, he passed away. Many in our family believe that he was poisoned because the year leading up to that, they chased and shot at him. They couldn't get close to him. And his case made it all the way to being observed by the FBI. Just recently closed his case, actually, like last month, but they were investigating it as a homicide. And they came back and said that most of the people who were alive during that time that they wanted to question either, have passed away or most have passed away. So they just closed the case. But, I don't focus too much on his death. A lot of us have family members who were taken too early from us because of the ongoing civil rights battle that we fought here in the U.S. So I focus on his life and things that he's accomplished as an education reformist and an activist and a preacher, man of God.
and the legacy he leaves in you too, I'm
Yeah,
going to
le
say.
legacy he left in me and my cousins and my brothers.
Cousins. Yeah.
Sure.
Your grandfather's story, the story of being a voting rights activist, of getting citizens the right to vote. My great uncle George, that's his story in
Mm,
Ruleville, Mississippi, with Fannie Lou Hamer up and down the dirt roads and trying to register
mm.
folks to vote and getting shot at in his house. He lived to be, I don't know, 88 or 89. So he survived the
Blessing, yeah.
injuries, right, of war, if you will, in those moments. But I really do think that that generation of leaders, Genesis, their lives inspire me. And think about the work of activists now, and that of course just brings me to you and Anjanou Ellis, our friend, and the work that you all have done, the successful work you did. Come on,
Mhm.
helping to
Mhm.
get
All
the,
right.
the Mississippi flag down. So could you just, how are you like your grandfather, and how are you like your dad, and how are you like you? What fuels your activism? What fuels the work you do in the world?
Sure, I'm like my father and my grandfather because I'm very brave. I'm extremely sensitive. That's who I am, I think, outside of anybody else. I'm a very sensitive person. I'm an artist. I'm very passionate. I think I might get that from my mother, actually, my mother and my grandmother, her mother, Grandma Violet, and my mother, Lisa. She's a nurse. She was in the Army, very strong, retired Army, 20 years, but she's a nurse. She's of service because she cares about people. And when she sees people hurting, the
Mm,
empath in her hurts. And I'm very much like that. So it's kind of like I was a sensitive child. I cried all the time. I was
mm,
introverted. I didn't wanna be around anybody. I didn't understand the world. Like, the world, I felt like I didn't belong here. Like, humanity itself confused me as a child. So, I just went inside and I created, I wrote, I drew, I painted. So that sensitivity birthed with that courageousness of really not fearing much of anything except my creator, and that's not even a fear, that's more of a love, but like a
mhm.
respect, I should say.
I love that. I love a
Yeah,
respect. Yeah.
there's
Like
not
an
a lot that I
awe.
fear. Yeah.
How, how, our podcast, of course, is called Love Period. So I'm thinking about this three circles of love, Genesis, the love of self, the love of our posse, our people, right? And the love of the creator. How did you, a sensitive person, a sensitive child who didn't understand the world, who went inside because the world was confusing or hard, how did you learn to love you? And has it ever been hard?
So I'm a student of hip hop and I'm a student of Islam. I was raised Muslim. Both of my parents converted before I was born. My mother from Catholicism, my father from Baptist. And Islam was the golden road on which I walked, and it speaks a lot about compassion. Like, Islam is a religion of humanity and peace and compassion. So it taught me to be both, uh, humble and confident. There's a balance there, right? Like,
Mhm.
knowing that I can do anything because I am a child of God, but also I am humble because I'm a student. I'm a student always.
Right. Mhm. I love
So
that.
when you live in those 2 worlds and you were raised in those 2 mindsets, I think the outcome is unconditional love for yourself that radiates to those around you, that radiates to humanity and beyond humanity, right? Beyond self and then our people and then global and then universal eventually, having love for all beings or creation.
Yes, I think that's right. It's this feeling of, all the world's major religions say love, something like love your neighbor as yourself. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, or don't withhold from someone something you need for yourself. One major religion just simply says, don't break anyone's heart.
Mm. Ooh,
But right, just don't
that's
break
deep.
anyone's heart. heart. But you and I know that maybe the issue of cruelty or violence or bigotry, maybe if the equation is love your neighbor as you love yourself, but you don't love yourself, maybe that doesn't turn into something universal and ever
Mm-mm.
widening, right? Like maybe
It's
that's
impossible.
the problem, right? Yeah, how can you love someone if you don't love yourself?
It's impossible. It has to start within. And I had to learn that. Like, I didn't always know that. I didn't understand what unconditional love meant until, like, last year. It was always very cliche. I think I've always walked with purpose and in service, but I didn't understand unconditional love for myself until, like, last year, and I have to imagine, like, some people spend their whole lives and never arrive there. So I feel grateful, and that's why I, do what I can with my humble platform and with people like yourself, my mentors, and people who support me, to just share what that looks like and what that feels like, and that you can achieve that for yourself, that real, true self love,
How
and
did you
forgive yourself.
how did you do that, sweetie? How did you get there?
I think the catalyst was a breakup that I had, and it was the first time I think I don't wanna say heartbroken because I don't believe in that, but it was the first time where I was like, my soul was shaken to
Hmm.
the point where I couldn't do anything except go back inside, like, as I did when I was a kid, and remember
Hmm.
that connection with source, that connection with my higher self, that connection with nature. I had nowhere else to go,
Hmm.
except inside, to remind myself of who I was, like my true essence before the world took its little ice pick and hammer and chiseled at me.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
that was the catalyst, and within that process, I had to learn to forgive myself and have compassion for myself in order to have, compassion, forgiveness, and unconditional love for this person that I had separated from. Um,
Mhm.
we never truly separate from anybody. We say, in Stoicism or, even Taoism, they say, "You have not lost somebody, you have returned them,"
That's good.
because we never possess anybody anyway. But I
Yeah.
had to learn a lot of lessons, and that's how I arrived to true self-love for myself, and that has radiated out to my former partners, the
Mhm.
world, my family, my puppy. I used to kill insects, Jackie. I used to kill insects, and I don't kill them anymore, which is, anyone who knows me know I'm, like, terrified of spiders, like roaches. I don't kill them anymore. I look at them differently. I'm like, "Oh, this little guy, he doesn't know, that he's inside what I think is my house," right?
Ooh.
Because that's relative. This little
Mhm.
guy is just doing his thing on the wall, let me put him outside my house, but, it's just a different way of being, and I'm still kind of navigating it, honestly.
Even the spiders are part of our kin,
Yes. I'm
right?
still terrified of them.
Girl, I don't like
Illogic.
spiders.
It's
I I haven't I have not quite.
it's not logical. It's not
I
logical.
I haven't quite gotten there. This is my just hoping this makes people laugh. I'm like, I love everything. If you're outside and you're crawling, I'm good on you because that's your space. But if you come inside, we have to have a conversation
Right.
about my space. Seriously though, when I was talking about those war religions, doing the research on my book, Fierce Love. Some of the teachings I really like, not just humankind, but how we are really, one with the creatures, one with the animals, one with the flying things, the crawling things. I think it's so interesting. I think about Alice Walker. Um, she puts in the mouth of Shug Avery her
Mhm.
waking up to, what God is like. And she says something like, I realize when I cut a tree, I would bleed,
Mm. Wow.
right? Like That's so
like being
cool.
that in tune. Yeah, and I what I believe, Reverend Jacqui, Spirit Mama, is
Right.
that we are going on a trajectory with humanity historically. Like, we are at a point in time where more people on the earth are becoming universalists, and
Yep.
globalists.
Right.
But I think we are starting to wake up a little more, become less egocentric.
Yes.
And I think there's more and more people, and people like yourself and other thought leaders who are helping to be catalysts for this trajectory. But I think it's happening all over the world, and it's almost like an evolution of humanity where our consciousness is expanding to really explore just what human beings are capable of.
I think that's right.
Right. When we get out of our ego and say, I'm not going to do this just because it benefits me. Like, what can I do to benefit those around me, the world around me, the universe around me, the consciousness and dimensions I might not be able to see? And it's an exciting time to be alive, and an exciting time to be doing the kind of things that you and I are doing.
Love Period will continue in a moment.
Many of us feel increasing anger at injustice, violence, and indifference in our world today. Join us March 14th for What Do I Do With My Anger? An online gathering featuring Richard Rohr and Brian McLaren. Learn ways of transforming anger into loving action. Inspired by Father Richard's new book, The Tears of Things. Register today at cac.org/anger. That's cac.org/ANGER.
You have new music that you've just put in the world. And I know when we started talking, Genesis, you were saying, that you are a student of, Islam. You are a student of so many thoughts, paradigms, I would say, philosophies, but also
Sure.
hip hop, right?
Sure.
So what's that? What's happening there? I mean, you say we're in a trajectory. I think we are. Human beings are evolving. I think that's right. I wonder if there's a concurrent regression, something else to like the death throes of something like, we will not change. Oh, heck no. Like that feels like a little pocket of that's going on. But I think mostly we're moving. So talk about how your music, your work, your art, how does it come from your love of people, your posse, the world? And also, how do you think you are influencing people to love differently?
Sure. I think, well, especially with hip hop's the most powerful art in the world, whether people understand that or not. That's why it's been commercialized and appropriated all over the world. So very, very powerful, high, fine art form.
Mm-hmm.
Hip hop for me, because I was such an introverted and quiet child, and I'm non-neurotypical as well, it was a way for me to have a voice and build my confidence and come to the conclusion, like, what I have to say is relevant. Actually, people want to hear what I have to say. Wow. And I kind of dabble. I go, when I was younger, I was very political, almost radical, just really not understanding, I won't get into that. But now my art, for a long time, I felt like I couldn't be myself in my art, being a queer person, a queer woman, always been more intellectual. I felt like I couldn't really be myself sensually or sexually with my hip hop as a young person, like a teen or early 20s. There are videos where I'm like, dressed really femme, and basically there's like outside forces telling me no one wants to hear that gay shit, excuse my language.
That's okay.
That pressure on you to like, if you want to succeed, you have to conform. And I haven't been in that place in a while, probably like 10 years, where now I just rap about whatever the F I want, whatever I want. I don't care if it's I don't really believe in respectability politics, whether it's from Black folks, white folks, it doesn't matter. Like, I say what I want and I speak my truth. And the truth isn't always the box that people try to place me in, whether I'm an activist or a advocate for love, because there's also, as we know, a lot of anger that comes with passion. And when we see people being harmed, sometimes my music is the means of which I can express that freely, and I feel so blessed. It's like therapy. It's like therapy.
Mhm.
And so my new album, I wrote it after my breakup and during quarantine, and I was going through a lot, and it's just more of like a celebration. It's called Tomboy, and I'm speaking about my relationships with women and the self-critique and the self um celebrating myself and my community and my friends. I have these videos. It's just me and my friends passing around the phone, having fun, and me talking my ish.
Mhm.
It's not, people will be like, is it political? It's not political in the sense that you would think, but it's political to me because I'm taking up space as a queer woman of color in hip hop to say, this is what I want to talk about, whether you like it or not.
Is there room in hip hop now? Have you made room? Like you made the flag come down. Have you made room in hip hop for you and your friends?
I think there's a lot of people pushing the envelope when it comes to hip hop and queerness or hip hop. And, you know, hip hop is always kind of, once it was commercialized, it's, kind of what we still see in mainstream, like the hypersexualization of Black women, hyper violent Black men, or hyper drug dealing or drug using,
Mhm.
which I don't talk down on, because that is also a reality that exists in our communities, and why a lot of people flock to that type of music or that type of consciousness. And
Right.
sometimes I do too if I'm in a certain vibe. But in terms of mainstream hip hop, is still not making a whole lot of room for people who kind of go against the grain, unless it's a little more gimmicky or shock value.
Okay.
And, but everyone plays their part. But the thing with mainstream hip hop, it's like it's destabilized and decentralized out of the
Mhm.
label's hands and into more of the people's hands. And that's what I love to see about the new artists that are coming out, even if they're not speaking about anything deep, like they're still, able to play the game, get their money, build their audience, which, I just love to see young Black folks win,
Yeah.
honestly.
Amen.
I
Yep.
love
Me
I
too.
love to see it. Yeah, so, I'm not one of those, folks who, like, talk down on the rap that's out right now. Like, I just love to see young Black people winning. Um, and for myself, I create my lane. Wherever I
Mhm.
fit in, I continue to make my music. It doesn't matter whether I'm, like, mainstream or have a label. I've been independent my entire career. I still
Right.
have made Billboard and LA Times and New York Times. I've still been able to do it all without the label.
Right.
And that's another thing I want the younger generation of artists and activists to understand, is like, you don't need particularly any label or outside entity that can exploit you. You don't need that.
Yeah, I feel like you're counter, my friend Brian Blunt talks about pockets of resistance in theology. I just think of your work as this, like almost like a lane of resistance, it's a river of resistance. Maybe I'm stuck on Mississippi River, but I feel like you are swimming kind of beautifully, Genesis, in so many spaces. Like, how does a hip hop artist end up with Vote Common Good? How does that right? How does
You
that
know?
happen?
My friends tease me all the time. They're always like, "You're just all over the place." They're like, "How can you put out this ratchet song that's, like, crazy, and then be partnering with the YMCA for some children things?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm just me. People keep asking me to do things, so, I all I can do is be me." Shout out to Be Me community also. I just don't know any other way to be. Like, I'll get depressed if I try to be somebody else. I just like to live in my light and shine bright, and whatever opportunities or networks who want to connect with me and collaborate, I'm just for it. I'm just open. If we're on the same wavelength, then we can get down. If it's not the same wavelength, then I think they're on some more low frequency or trying to use me for something, then I'll say no.
Mm-hmm. But this takes us back, Genesis, to like the very top of the talk about just you loving you loving the people around you, you loving the friends around you, you loving the creatures, the creation around you, and it resonating. What's the word I want to say? Reverberating is a better word, out into the world, and then out to the Creator. That to me is like the way to be. That is the way to be. Like if we could be that way, if we could be ourselves, and I think ourself is that way. Like that's, I think, before, what did you say, before the chisel hits us, when we're still we people, I think that's our innate nature,
Right.
is to be lovers of ourselves and the people around us and the world, the creatures. I'm in the dandelions, I'm in the mud, I'm in the worms. When I was little, I used to love playing with worms. Let's talk about that another time. But like all the things, they're like a part of us. So what would be the way, how can we amplify that kind of world-loving love is always my question. And I wonder what you'd say. Maybe, I mean, I would love to say, what would you rap? But what would you say about this kind of world-loving, to be a world-loving warrior or something? I don't know. What would you say?
Like a globalist or a
Yeah.
universalist even.
Yeah.
I think it's doing what you've been doing, Jacqui, like trying to use your voice and your platform to, speak on this and amplify those who you feel have this message genuinely, and myself, I work with a lot of younger clients, younger activists and artists who I see potential in as can be being the next generation of light bringers.
Light bringers.
Yeah, but you gotta meet people where they are,
Yeah.
and, like, that's why I don't have any judgment on anybody because I don't have judgment on myself. I had to get rid of a lot of negative chatter and negative self-talk and anxiety, that I've worked on for a long time, so without judgment of myself, I don't judge anybody, and I think everyone has the potential to be that light bringer because we all have that inner light and essence inside of us, whether we, choose to try to get back to it or not, that's your business, but it's there.
It's there. Light bringer. You say it makes me, I do get some Star Wars going in my brain about, but yeah, light worker, light bringer. Do you remember? No, you're too young. There's a science fiction movie that had these light beings that came and they put on human flesh so they could like fit in with us. And I think it was called Cocoon. I love science fiction. And there were these, and they had so much positive energy that these old people came across their cocoons in the ocean and in the pools, and it would make them young again. And they were like old and dancing and doing their thing. But at some point, one of the women, the female type alien, if you will, wanted to make love to an earthling. And what she did is she's basically sort of unzipped her skin. Like she took her skin off and all she was light, right?
Wow.
And then she zapped him with her light. And then he was like, it was like the orgasm of all orgasms. Is that okay, Stacey?
I feel like I'm that being of light,
right?
Giving like the best orgasms to people.
Ever, right?
I gotta watch that movie. I feel like that movie is about me.
It is a fantastic, everybody listening, get Cocoon, rent it, and watch the light beings be light. Yeah. So I love that giggle, right? Woo! It's like yeah. So what if we could do that? What if we could take off our masks? What if we could take off our stuff? What if we could strip down our BS? What if we could just get real and just really be light and love on each other? I think that would be hot.
We are light beings experiencing existence as a human at this point in time. But this is our vessel.
Yeah.
This is flesh and bones. And it's important, to take care of our vessels, but there's something deeper in our consciousness and our in our hearts and our mind. There's an electricity that keeps our body going. It regulates us. A pulse.
That's right.
Yeah.
Somebody might call it a soul, a CK. Light is a great word for it. Genesis, y'all, Genesis is my spirit daughter. She's been mentored at the Middle Project, where I'm the president. She's, I just feel like in the last, 8 years or something, I've known you. To watch you be you has been a delight. No kidding.
Thank you.
A delight. And I just wonder, if I ask you, what do you know for sure about love? What would you say?
I think that I know that love is something that's almost unfathomable. It's something that's almost indescribable, but it is something that exists in everything and everybody. And I believe that every living thing is deserving of it and needs it to grow healthily in a healthy manner.
That's beautiful. Genesis Briggs, Genesis B, light wrapped in flesh. Thank you, Genesis.
Thank you for everything.
Love Period is
Corey Big,
Paul Swanson,
Izzy Spitz,
Sarah Janzak,
Jenna Kuiper,
Sarah Palmer,
Nicholas Kramer,
and I'm Calista Brewster. This podcast is produced by the Center for Action and Contemplation, which is located in the heart of New Mexico, thanks to the generosity of our supporters. We also have other podcasts you might like. You can find those wherever you like to listen by searching for Center for Action and Contemplation, or visit us at cac.org to find out more about our other programs. From the high desert of New Mexico, we wish you peace and every good.